Hey guys, what's up? It's Dave. I'm back in the garage with my 97 Audi A4 Quattro. Just recently finished doing some front brake work to it. While I was in there doing some work, I noticed the CV boots, both outer and inner, were getting kind of old. And I've had this car for probably over 15 years. It's got 294,000 miles on it now. These are not the original axles. You know, if this was a Carrera 4, I might disassemble them, clean them, put new boots on them. But this time I opted to go with two new axles. So I've got two complete axles left and right. I'm going to replace them both. And I thought I'd fire up the camera, take you along for the ride, and show you how I do it. So let's get started. Okay, the first thing I'm going to do before I get the car up in the air, I'm going to loosen this axle nut. It's on really tight. While the car's on the ground, emergency brakes on, I got the thing in gear, so the car doesn't roll very easily. Now I can get a good bite on this thing. It's pretty tight. So I got a breaker bar, I've got another pipe on here, and now I'm just going to break this thing loose. There we go. It's just a lot easier to do this. Alright, so this is loose. So now I'm going to lift the car up and get the wheel off. Now there are any number of ways you can do this. And here I am at the driver's side front. I want to take off as few items as I have to in order to get this axle out. Here's the axle in the back. What I've always done was I've taken the top of this spindle, the two control arms, disconnect them, then I can pull this spindle over and out of the way and kind of sneak the axle out this way. So let's try that. So like I mentioned, I've had this car for a long time, and I've had all of this stuff off at one point or another in the past. And when I reassembled it, I put anti-seize on this pinch bolt here. So I'm sure that this thing, I mean, the nut always comes off easy. But if it's never been off the car before, this bolt can sometimes be corroded in here and hard to get out. And this could be your biggest fight in this whole job. Like I said, mine's been out before. This is going to come out pretty easily for me. If yours is stuck in here, I've always tried, when I find one that's stuck, try to get this bolt to spin, turn. Put some, spray it down with some penetrant. Try to get this thing loosened up. Maybe, grab a wrench on it, back and forth, back and forth. You can get it to spin a little bit. I would get it to spin, and then maybe put an impact on it. And you really zing it and get it spinning fast, and then it'll come right out. But as opposed to it being frozen in here and then just trying to hammer it out while it's frozen, that's not a good idea, and it's never ends up well. I mean, the worst case scenario is you're going to have to heat this area up and get it super hot, and then it will come out, but that usually, destroys the boots here. So if you're lucky, this thing will come right out, and we can move on, and I'm sure it's going to come out real easy. And, I know people watch YouTube videos, and it always seems real easy when the guy's doing it. But this is going to be easy because I've put anti-seize in it. And, of course, I'll put anti-seize when I replace this thing again, and I'll show you what I do there. But if you've done that, or if the guy before you has done that, then this thing should come off pretty easily. So let's see what happens here. I got it loose, so I'm going to just take a gear wrench and spin the rest of it off my hand. Now that I've broken loose, and I haven't even put any penetrant on this. That's how confident I am that this thing is not going to be a problem. You should probably, at the very least, spray some liquid wrench or your favorite penetrant on here. So now that I got that out, let me just see if I can get this thing to spin at all. And I can. Alright, and that's usually where I'll try to spin it off and just get it freewheeling in there. Alright, so now that should come out. I'm going to have to grab it with a pair of pliers or something, but I'll get that out now with some vice grips and it'll come right out. And before I put this back in, I'll clean it all up, put some anti-seize in there, and stick it right in there. But even with anti-seize, you can see it still gets rusty and corroded in there. So this could be a tough part of the job, but if you get past this, you're in good shape. Now these control arms should kind of come out rather easy. Okay, and this is already falling aside, which gives me a little more access room to get in here. One thing you might want to do, and I didn't do it before you disconnect this spindle, is just to make sure that the CV joint, the outer CV joint, is not stuck or wedged into the spindle or the bearing. Sometimes it might be stuck in there a little bit, but if you just loosen this bolt, when you loosen the bolt, make sure you get some play. If you loosen the bolt and it still won't budge, whack it a couple times with a hammer, and just make sure that it's loose, and mine is loose. So that's good. Our next thing I'm going to do is disconnect the axle from the transmission. There's a transmission flange where the axle bolts to it. There's 6 bolts. These are 8mm 4 squares. These bolts, you might have an Allen bolt if it's been replaced before, but there's 6 of them. I'm going to reach in here. You can do this from underneath the vehicle. It might be a little easier to get to. I'm going to do it from the wheel well, and I'm just going to take my tool and I'm going to lock it on to the fastener like that. So I'm going to reach in here from the fender. I've got this 1/2-inch wobble socket and a couple of extensions, so I can reach in here now and lock my socket onto the tool. And then with my impact, I'm going to try to buzz this off real quick. Here goes. A little more power. A little more power. Like that. And now there's 6 of them here. So I got that one, and then I'm going to rotate, by the brake rotor. Let me grab my tool. There's one. And I'm going to rotate until I get the next one in view. Lock the wrench on there like that. Reach in. Okay, I've got 3 extensions and a wobble, so a lot of the impact is being absorbed by the tool that I'm using, but it's still enough to get these out. So that's 2. And I'm going to go all the way around and get all 6 of these. Now, if you don't have an impact and you're just reaching in there with some hand tools and you're trying to loosen those bolts, the whole axle is going to turn and you're going to be fighting with it. One thing you can do is if you just take a screwdriver and in the rotor here, stick it in there like that. And now when this thing rotates, it'll lock up against the brakes, so you can stop this whole assembly from rotating just by sticking a screwdriver in here. And then this way, it can't turn anymore. So that's one thing, if you're doing it by hand. I didn't even do any of that with the impact wrench. It just, the impact wrench works great. I just happen to have one, so I use it. And here's the last one. And that was the last one. Okay, so that was the last one. All 6 of them are loose and unscrewed all the way. I've removed the axle bolt from the outer CV joint. Let's see if we can maneuver this thing out of here. Come on, baby. All right, I'm going to turn the steering wheel fully to the right and see if that'll allow me to pull this spindle out a little further. I just need a little bit more space to get that axle out of the axle flange. Okay, so I hopped in the car, turned the steering wheel all the way to the right, and when I come out here, it's already separated. So that's good. Now let's see. Oh, okay. Let me get the axle. Come on, baby. Let's see if we can get this axle out of here. There we go. And the axle is out. Okay. All right, so this is why I was replacing this. I'm looking in between these bellows and I see, I mean, these look like they're ready to crack and start spewing stuff. It's already got a hole in it. And, you know, this one didn't even have a clip on it, a clamp or anything. You know what? I don't even want to touch this thing, let alone rebuild it. So that's why I went with a brand new one. So let's go get the brand new one. Okay, our new drive axle, straight from China, probably. Well, I can see these guys don't want to deal with the grease either, so they assemble these things, leave them bone dry, and then they give us grease. So let's grease this thing up. I mean, this job is going to be greasy no matter what. You think you're going to do this job, anything to do with an axle or an axle boot, and not get greasy, you'll learn. So let's bone dry. So let's get some grease. See if we can't get some grease throughout this joint so that it's well lubricated. So the best way might be to do this. Going to put some grease in all of these tracks where the balls ride. Just get it all in here as best we can. Oh boy. Now I did it. Oh shoot. I didn't think it would do that. Now these balls have come out, so it looks like I'm going to be getting very greasy. Oh shoot. Shoot, shoot, shoot. Be able to get these back in. Doesn't look like it. One, two, three, four, five. I get one more in there, and something tells me this one's not going to want to go for some reason. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. They're all in there. Well, that was a little bit of a disaster. But they're all lubricated. Ugh, yuck. All right. Goes back in. Put this cap on here and wipe up this mess and continue on. Okay, so that's the inner one. Now we got to grease up the outer one. All right, I'm going to assume that there's no grease in this one either. So this one should be a little easier. I'm just going to grease it right through this hole here. Just right, slowly. And just put as much grease as I can inside here and force it in with the bolt. I'm sure there's air pressure because that boot is airtight. Probably fighting air pressure, but it's getting in there. It's in there. All right, the overwhelming majority of that stayed inside there. So I got it in there and it stayed in there. So basically I'm just feeding it right through here and I'm using the bolt to push it in there. Yeah, I think that's good. Alright, so the outer one's greased, the inner one's greased. Now let's take this greasy thing back to the car and get more greasy. Alright, here I am back at the car. Let me see if I can get this axle in position here. Which I can. Alright, I've got the outer CV joint locked in the spindle. Now I'm going to put the bolt in there to keep that in place before I start tampering with the inner CV joint. Alright, now I'm going to reach in here and see if I can get these things, one of these bolts started at least. Make sure they at least line up first. I think that's good for line up. I don't know if you're going to be able to see any of this, but I'm reaching in here. Alright, I got one bolt started. So now that I got one started, I should be able to move things around and get the other ones lined up, and I can always turn the whole assembly with the brake rotor. Get it to a spot where I can reach in better. Alright, I get two started. Seems like that's the spot where I can reach it best, so let me go like that, reach in. A couple more. Kind of feeling around blindly here. Once you get the first one started, the other ones line up pretty easily. There's another one lined up and started. And I got just two more. And that last one right there. And I get that started. So now I'm going to reach in with my tool and my extensions and try to snug those up before I torque them down. Hopefully you can see. I'm just reaching in here, putting my tool in the bolt, and then reaching in with my swivel and all its extensions. And just snugging it up tight. And then when I get them all snug like that and everything looks good, I'll go around and torque them. And 6. So now they're all snug. I'm going to go around and hit them with an impact. Alright, I got them all snug now. I'm going to go back around with an impact. Give them a couple ugga-duggas until I get all 6 of them like that. Okay, got all 6 of them nice and tight. And now we go to reinstall the spindle again with that pinch bolt and the 2 upper control arms. Alright, before I go and reassemble these things, I want to clean them up just a little bit. There you go, that's better. Get that cleaned up. Get these cleaned up a little bit. Okay, I'm ready to reassemble this. I'm just going to put a little bit of anti-seize. I don't want to go crazy with this stuff because it gets everywhere. But just a little, just like that. That's plenty. And also clean the bolt up a little bit. I'll put a little anti-seize on that. And I will appreciate this, who knows, maybe 100,000 miles from now when I'm back in here again. Alright, let's see if we can get these things hooked up again. on that. Now, if I can hammer these in there with them and have them stay there. I like to put this bolt in this way. That way, you know, when I'm trying to get this thing out, if it's frozen in there, I got the bolt here. I can try to spin it and get it out this way. And if you put it in from this end, then you're working back there. It all depends on you. If you put it in this way, you can pound it through that way easier, but I don't like pounding it through, so I always put my bolt in from this direction. But it really doesn't matter, I suppose. And then the nut. Tighten this. I'm going to tighten the nut as opposed to the bolt. That should be plenty tight enough. This stuff travels just like wheel bearing grease too. So I don't like to go too crazy with it. Alright, so that's back in. We didn't touch any of the brakes. We got all the 6 inboard bolts attaching the axle. Got this one center bolt on the outside. I'm going to torque down when the car is on the ground. Just one quick last look around. I think I got everything. I think I'm all set. Put the wheel on. I'm going to wipe this brake rotor down. Try to keep my hands off of it. I was pretty good at that, but I'm going to wipe it down with some brake clean and put the wheel back on, get it on the ground, and torque that axle nut bolt. Okay, wheels back on, car's back on the ground. The last thing we need to do before we put the hubcap on is to sock down that center axle bolt. So let's do that now. This thing's got to be pretty damn tight. All right, that's about good. Those are one-use bolts. That bolt is now stretched and it has good clamping force, but you cannot reuse it. So they come with the new axles. All right, there we are, replacing the front drive axle on a 97 Audi A4 Quattro. And I will tell you that Audis are almost all the same, pretty much identical from the early 90s up until, I had a 2010 Q5, pretty much the same thing. So if you've got that job to do, you found this video and it was helpful to you, awesome, smash a like. Please consider subscribing to the channel. And until next time, thanks for watching.